Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leadership Diaries of the Light, episode number 8, part 2. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to say that, we've got a fantastic show for you today. We've got some distinguished guests who are going to really help you, teach you some wonderful things about life, about work ethic, about mentorship, and just about their journeys and how they've gotten to where they've gotten to. Make sure you got a pen, a paper, your iPad, whatever it is you want to use to document this and enjoy the ride. Thank you.
Let me take this time to shine my light, shine the lights, shine the lights.
I really like that because I think it's not something that we really do in terms of looking at the duality of it, in terms of the person coming in, what their challenges are, and then you being there, what your challenge is. And I think that's where sometimes the clashes happen, probably because the person who wanted the role is still working through their own issues.
Yeah, right.
And the person coming in, I guess probably sometimes putting themselves under unnecessary pressure of saying, I need to prove that I can do this. And, and maybe that's where, some of the issues happen. And Sabina, you spoke about obviously being part of the issue, like getting in the way of yourself. How important is it for true honesty? How do you find how people really rate themselves when you speak to them? Do you find that people are 100% honest with themselves, or do you think that they overestimate possibly sometimes what their strengths and where they are in from a skill set perspective?
Like in my experience, to be honest, most people tend to overestimate their skill set. And really sometimes try to show some sort of bravado, about how great they are, that has typically, and somehow, because they're used to, there's this thing that they say in corporate, perception is reality. You know what I mean? So I think people always find the pressure to overestimate or to show how great they are, and and to really sometimes be there to hype them up themselves more than what they actually deliver. That has been the majority of my experience, and sometimes they don't always have the performance to back it up. When you have the performance to back it up, no problem. You can believe in your own hype, believe in your own bravado. I give it all to you. So that has been my experience. But I've also found that it also comes from a place of insecurity. People feeling that I need to do this to feel good enough. Maybe I don't bring enough to the table unless I do all of these things. So that has typically been my experience. And to be honest, it's kind of also been rewarded in corporate. I'm just going to be really honest with you guys. It's been rewarded, and so for me, being someone who's not really wired that way, who's about, I will deliver, I will show what I'll do. I need to work on shouting about what I do, which you need to do, and put your hand up. I've learned that. It was very difficult for me because it's like, why are they rewarding this guy? What is this person done? Let's go back to the numbers, And so for me, in some ways, corporate kind of reinforces that sort of bad behavior, But what I found is that eventually, as you continue to move up, it sort of starts to even it out. Those people sort of start to thin away, especially if they don't come with the performance and the experience, that they need. They start to whittle out, because you actually need that to continue to move forward, because that's what actually prepares you for the next step, for the next role you want to get to. So, and that's given me a quiet calm about it, to say, you know what, it does. Yes, there will always be those elements, but eventually things kind of do even out, and those who are actually supposed to be in the roles that they're supposed to be and deliver what they need to deliver will be there. Yes, there will be one or two. That's normal, But that's what I found.
Would you say that it's cultural issues?
So my view is slightly different. Firstly, I think if you ask any one of us in this room, we will hype ourselves and talk about. I mean, I don't know anybody who will say, I don't think I'm good enough. Right?
Yeah.
So I think if you ask me if I could run Discovery today, I can probably tell you I'm ready to take over.
Oh.
The question is whether or not I am.
Yes.
And so I think there is my leader's responsibility is to say, so there's an important thing here in how you communicate the fact that you're not ready.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it in a way that kills my spirit.
Correct.
Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is you might say to me that no, I don't think you are ready for this. So the delivery is important. But you're going to say you're not ready, but here's what I think you are ready. You can do, and then you start playing to my strengths. But I think if you ask any one of us, we'll probably tell you we can conquer the world. The leadership responsibility, in my view, is to be able to communicate to me in a way that builds. But perhaps I'm not there yet. But also to then figure out what my strengths are, and then play to myself. Because I think Tagli, if you don't do that, these people then get exposed, and that's why as you say, the system flushes them out.
Yeah. But that is I hate to generalize, generalizations, but men tend to have that, No, I'm being very honest. Men really even if they know they can only do 4 things, they'll be like, no, I can do 10. I can do these 10 things. I'm going to get there, and you're like, okay, but women, unfortunately, which is what I kind of alluded to, you hold yourself back. You're not all of us are wired that way. All of us are like, no. Okay, I need to first show that I can do the 7 things. Then once I've done the 7 things, it's possible that I can do the 10 things. It's not as what I found in my experience, it's not as natural. And in a weird way, as I've been moving up, it's like, okay, let me adopt a male mindset about this sometimes. Like, I can do this, let me believe it. But it wasn't something that was natural to me and natural as a woman, for me. I always it was always like, no, I can do the 4 things. I can 4 things, this is, and maybe I can do 6. That's as far as I can go. But that sort of belief I've seen a lot more in men. I'll be very honest, in my career. Yeah.
And for you, I mean, you've seen it happen, and I think for a long time probably it's a male thing. But when did that switch then happen for you to say, actually, I don't need to be able to do the 7 things. I can do 6, and I can do the 10. I know that I can do the 10.
I think the switch happened to me when I started to really look back in terms of all of the different roles I've done, and I kind of figured out, and I worked out that when I reflected back, actually, I never was able to do all 10 things. I came in knowing how to do the 4, and then on the job, I learned how to do the other 6 that I needed to do. I started, people always talk about exposure builds comfort, that sort of thing. I started to get that exposure does that, and there'll be elements of being uncomfortable. And when that switch happened, and it happened a little bit later, honestly, in my career, not so much in the beginning. Then I started being a lot more comfortable with it, being like, no, it's okay. I will figure out the 6 things, and also understanding that the role actually is there to help me figure out the 6 things. That was the other thing, because so as that happened, I started to being a lot comfortable with being uncomfortable. Looking back to saying, I've never known all those things that I needed to do, but I've always figured it out on the way. And more importantly, I've always had the right support structure. I've been very blessed with that. I've always had the right support structure, even at work, to help me, both at the top and also within the team, to help me figure out those steps. So, and that's when that switch happened, it was liberating, I must say to you, because then I was able to show up as me and show up being fully confident in what I bring to the table and what I will still learn. So I found it very liberating, actually.
And I have it's 2 questions, so I don't know how I'm going to structure them. But one is around, like I see that, you know, when people come into an organization, yes, you have to prove yourself, whatever, but you know, I feel that it's a lot easier for someone who's coming into an organization to quickly establish themselves because they do 2-3 wins. Whereas if you've been in an organization for a really long time, it's about consistency, right? So you can't be good for a year and then not be good for 2 years and then be good for a year. People will remember that because you're there all the time. So how do you then remain consistent? I mean, how do you build that in terms of really driving that consistency? That's the one element of the question. The second piece is, I guess, then the importance of asking the people around, the support structure, either in the form of mentors, coaches, or whatever, but in helping you drive that consistency.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a very easy question in a sales environment because ultimately you get judged on the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, so for as long as you hit in the numbers, they have no choice but to recognize you. So your job will do that part. The question around now the numbers have done what they have to do. You want to move a step, a level higher. How do you have those conversations? I think is
correct.
Is probably what becomes difficult. But again, you know, if you have something to show for it, it becomes a fairly easier conversation to have. And I mean, you know, I know we're making an example of people coming. So in some cases, it's reality. And if you are lucky enough to find a person who appreciates their own limitations, that actually, if I'm going to do this thing well, I need this guy who's been in the trenches, who understands the culture, who understands the business.
Yeah,
that plays a huge role. So in my case, you know, the gentleman who came from outside was very generous in that he gave me a lot of exposure. Firstly, I think it was intentional, but I also think that it really was just an appreciation of the fact that as a team we can achieve a whole lot, because obviously I'd been there for a while and I kind of knew the business far better than he did. And so it was a mutually beneficial relationship in that I needed him for exposure and he needed me to help him navigate the organization. And so I was very lucky in that way, you know. Hopefully that answers your question.
The other thing for me that helped with the consistency element is I started to change my mindset about what consistency meant. Consistency did not mean, obviously I have to achieve my sales target, but that's the status quo.
Correct.
If that makes sense. That's the
That's the
hygiene
minimum.
factor. That's like the starting point.
Correct.
Consistency also was for me about stepping up. And part of that stepping up involved developing myself, and I took two routes to it. There was obviously the exposure piece, but then there's obviously the formal learning
The
piece.
MBA,
You know, so you do that too, to do that, because then I'm also being consistent in pushing myself into spaces that I'm not used to. And then if I was also fortunate that I had people who came in who wanted to give me that exposure, who wanted me to do things that I hadn't done before. And so I understood that was part of my consistency as well, is pushing myself, moving into new spaces. And I was fortunate to have the exposure, but I made sure I developed myself to being ready for that. And I changed my mindset. And so when I looked at it like that, and I also focused on the learning aspects of it, it all happened kind of naturally and organically. It was a lot, and it motivated me as well. You know, it was a lot easier to get through.
And Tabani, for you, I mean, you've had to move from different organizations as well, joining teams where many people were overlooked, and then leading the very same people to achieve great things.
I think the first piece is obviously, I think people obviously have always been my purpose. So that's always the first thing that I look at. So whenever I join organizations, that's the first thing I look at before the business itself, in terms of how are the people, where are the gaps, and then I I have honest conversations, obviously, with people in terms of if I ask what they want, because I need to know what they want, and then where they think their gaps are, and then where I think their gaps are, by providing examples, because I think that's always a good thing to do. And then I tell them that the journey with me will be, I want to get them to a space where they are comfortable in being uncomfortable, because I'm going to put them in uncomfortable spaces, because that's how they're going to grow. But the one thing that they need to know is that I'm always behind them. So I'm always, as a term I learned from one of the guys, there's nothing that you can break that I can't fix. But as long as you're trying, I will fix it, because that's what I'm here to do. But if you don't break things, you don't learn that way. And because the view for me is that I'd rather you make a 50,000 Rand mistake now when you're a junior, versus you encountering that situation and you're now managing a 6 billion Rand business and now you're making a 1 billion Rand mistake. So rather you learn the mistake earlier and now you know, you learn from that. So for me, it's always been about that authenticity, and then always continuously, every conversation I have leading back to when we had the conversation, this is what you said, hence why I'm doing this. This is what you said, hence why I'm doing this. And if your mindset or your vision changes, let's have that conversation as well, because it's okay. Because obviously through experiences, some things might change. So what I do is that in terms of really, I go into the heart of the people first before talking about the business, because I think if they are in a good space, then they'll go all out to deliver what needs to be delivered, and know that I'm very authentic in terms of what it is that I'm trying to do. So building that trust with them, that's always been for me. Yeah.
Tangus, I want to go back to your childhood.
Yeah.
And a lot of the viewers come from very humble beginnings.
Mm.
And they often think that being a product of the environment means that they can only achieve up to a certain level.
Correct.
You're a true testament that just because you come from where you come from, that does not make that the same. What were some of the things that helped you in that environment to see beyond what you could see? Number one, and number two is where did that drive? Where did you get that drive to continuously push you to be better, to do better, and to the point that you are where you are right now?
It's a question I get asked a lot of times. So, and I mean, it's a very simple thing, really. You said earlier on how much I admire, or I suppose everybody loves their parents, but my father is my big role model, for many reasons. I mean, so my parents have not been to school, so But the one thing about my father that I never understood is very early in my life, he was very clear that if you're going to make it in life, you have to go to school. And so the fascination about this thing that he had never experienced was just, I would just talk to the men's wisdom. But what many people don't know is that I actually failed matric. I passed Sesotho only. Because I was playing football, and I said to my father a few years ago when he turned 8, my father is 86, and the conversation, I told him at his 80th, I said, the conversation we had over my matric results completely changed my life. And I mean, he said to me, listen, if I believed that this is the best you can ever achieve, I'd pat you on the back and say, I know you did your best. But these results don't represent your capability at all. So decide what you want to do, and I'll back you. So, that conversation, I said and I thought about it, and I said, here is a man who really believes I can be anything I want to be. So I then did matric again at his encouragement, and then I was able to go to university. So the first part of the answer is that I guess as a kid I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know why. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. But the person who really drove my journey, which I truly find remarkable, because as I say, both my parents have never been to high school, but they were very clear that this is the path for you. We think you can do it, and we'll throw our little resources behind it. And yeah, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for that conversation, which to a large extent really, really shaped, the man that I have become. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, it just goes to show you, I think you think that mentors and role models come in different shades of form. Sometimes they come from home.
Yeah.
And it's so important to really be open to listen when wisdom is provided. But sometimes we hear things, but we overlook it because of either who it comes from.
Yeah.
Second thing is, no, but you've never done this. So how can you tell me
Yeah,
to do? How can you tell me to do something that you've never
Yeah.
done?
Correct.
Yeah.
You're not in a position to kind of tell me that. But it's having the foresight as well to say that this comes from good people who want the best for you. And that's all they want at the end of the day.
Yeah. It really is. I think the importance of obviously mentors and people that you reach out to. You spoke earlier about, this thing of self-made. It's just been perpetuated a lot. Everyone wants to be self-made and so forth, and talking about how they're self-made, and it's like it's physically impossible to be self-made, right? Someone assisted you in some form or shape. Even as a tenderpreneur, right? Someone gave you the contract.
Yes.
So you and I think that mentality, starts driving a lot of arrogance in people in terms of, I am self-made, forgetting that you were moving in different directions, but there were some bumps along the way, I think, that pushed you into a certain in your journey. And this piece around, the foresight of someone who wanted something for you without necessarily having experienced it is phenomenal. And you having conversations with people who are fighting in the army. You are probably still in your diapers at the time, and they're your colleagues today. But it's quite interesting because
Sitting at the same table.
sitting at the same table, having real
Having to find
discussion.
commonalities,
Exactly.
collaborate. Yeah, it's interesting.
And for me, I always find it fascinating because as much as we all come from different backgrounds, it feels like there's a commonality in the journey. Yes, it's shaped in different ways, but there is a commonality, and everyone has highs and lows. But it's just about how you take the lows that actually truly shapes your journey. I know it.
The lows in my career have been the single biggest learnings. The biggest growth and transformation has always happened in the lows. And there is value in the low, and I used to get so upset with Jesus about why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard? Why for me is it like this? But the growth and the learnings that happened, I've really learned during the good times. There've been some, but it hasn't been. But the lows, the blessing in the low, has been something that has really helped me grow in my career and prepared me for the next. And you have to learn to embrace the low and know that the low is teaching you or preparing you for something. That has helped a lot.
No, in fact, they say you judge greatness in difficult times, not in good times. So to your point, how you react to those lows, will determine your character, really. And that you don't judge when it's nice.
Absolutely.
You judge the character when it's difficult.
100%. I mean, if I look at my career, I've had a lot of those. And what I've realized as individuals, we don't like to talk about our lows.
Correct.
Yeah.
We never talk about them.
I just openly told you I failed matric.
No. even though you told us, there was a leading question that I asked you. You never have to say how many people know that about you. And it's not something you're going to go around telling people, say, hey, I failed at this. But the point is, and when we look at people, because when we look at people in their capacity or wherever it is that they've gotten to, as even though we've all personally had our own challenges, we always think that for other people, the journey has been extremely smooth. Yeah. There have been no challenges.
Yeah.
In fact, their career has just done this. Not realizing that actually, for all of us, there are parts where it's been a downward projection for a year, 2 years, and then there was a time for me where I actually went through depression.
Yeah.
But I had no idea I was depressed. And we're at a time now during health and wellness, during a COVID time where people are going through a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty. But through that, other people can use this time and propel themselves. Whereas other people, this could be a time that they look back and say, I can't believe this happened to me. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
What did I do to deserve this? So, I've always felt that your mindset, it all starts from your mindset. How you think, how you view yourself, how you view the situation. Don't personalize it, because sometimes people feel like people are out to get us, but it's not about you. It's just the situation, and there will always be something that's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
And if you're able to use that, as something that can propel you, you look back one day, say, there's 3 or 4 critical roles that I've had in my career. One of them being a sales manager in Umtati at SAB, a place that I'd never been to. When I got there, I'd never been there before. Looked after the team. 2 of the people in the team wanted the role. One of them didn't get it, so he left immediately. And that was the biggest gap in my team because it was the biggest area. The other one, in the first 6 months, we just could not work together. And I had to overcome those challenges, recruiting people, ask myself, where do I even start? There's no recruiting companies in that.
Correct.
I can't just pick up a phone and say, agency so-and-so, I've got a gap.
Yeah.
So then you start to rely on your instincts. You talk to people. One of the previous guests said, ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we never do, we don't ask.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I want to encourage the viewers is, if you don't know how to do something, yes, you can figure it out. But figuring it out may take you a lot longer.
Yes.
Than just saying, I'm going through this. I know that you've been through something similar. How did you get through? So we really have to embrace where we are, but most importantly, find ways to get back on our feet.
Yeah.
If there's anything I want to leave the viewers with, I think that's that.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that we've been talking a lot about no one is self-made, a role of mentors, etc., etc. For me, the one thing we should never gloss over is that to your point, the journey starts with you.
Correct.
The journey starts with you. All of these people are just enablers, really. So if you don't have it in you, the next person has no reason to mentor you, to nurture you, to do all of those things, create opportunities for you. It has to come from you. And that's the first thing.
100%. Tabile, any last words from your side?
For me, we all spoke about journeys, and it is your journey, right? And your journey will have its own ups, bumps, lefts, right, all of those different things. And I would say is, in your time, embrace your journey, embrace all the different elements of it, and don't compare yourself or try to make your journey like someone else's journey. It's yours, and be comfortable in it. And for me as well, be kind to yourself. I'm learning that thing about being kind to myself in my journey as well, to really nurture and to build myself. So that is what I would say. It's yours. Be kind to yourself and enjoy it.
Tabani?
I live, my quote. It's about, you have to live your best life. That's ultimately what it's about, I think, for me. And a lot of people want to live somebody else's best life and not theirs. And that's why I think we find ourselves in certain situations that we shouldn't have been. You're in a situation where you're being overlooked for a role, but and you not really take stock, and then because you're comparing yourself to someone else, you leave an organization which was actually the right one for you. And I think for me, it's really important to really, like she's saying, and like you've said, to really focus on yourself. And it really starts with you and you really wanting to live your best life the way you want to. And without that, I think you won't achieve any joy or any satisfaction if you don't do that.
So guys, another episode, a lot of jewels, a lot of wisdom that our guests have contributed towards today's conversations.
Yeah.
I just want to thank our guests yet again. Tabilu, thank you so much for joining us today and really sharing some of the things that have happened in your life that have really shaped you. Khatang, thank you so much for your vulnerability. Those being so authentic as leaders, which really speaks volumes as to why you are where you are. And this is still, but you're still
part of the journey.
You're still going to do so much great things. It's still the beginning. So I just want to thank you both for your time, and to the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in again. I hope that today has been a wonderful time, inspirational for you, where you've learned something that you can go back and really put into practice. So until next time, thank you. So if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to subscribe at the bottom. What else must they do, Taban?
Hit the bell notification so you get updated every time we upload a new episode.
And then once you watch that episode, make sure to write your comments, like it, share it with your family, your friends.
And as you share your comments, just share all your thoughts on the episode or any other things that you'd like for us to discuss in future episodes.
Boosters of our leads.
Let me take this